everyone, and welcome. Before we begin, please take a moment to familiarize yourselves with our emergency procedures. Your safety is our priority. In the event of an earthquake, please remember to immediately duck, cover, and hold until the shaking stops. Should an evacuation be necessary, you will be notified by an announcement. Please follow your Ateneo professors. They will guide you to the nearest fire exit. Once you reach the fire exit, please proceed calmly to the ground floor assembly area. During the evacuation, always keep to the right side. The left side is reserved for emergency personnel. Please remember, do not use the elevators. Do not re-enter the building until the all-clear signal is given. If an announcement is made for an all-clear, we will return here and continue the conference. Please kindly follow all instructions provided by our emergency personnel. Thank you for your cooperation. So as a community, we are committed to fostering a safe, respectful, and inclusive environment. We encourage everyone to uphold these values as we engage in meaningful discussions and dialogue throughout the event. When we encourage open and meaningful dialogue, please note that the opinions and perspectives shared by speakers and participants do not necessarily reflect the official statements or positions of Ateneo de Cabayao University. For this event, we encourage attendees to be attentive during the presentation. To minimize distractions and noise, kindly mute or turn off your cellular phones and refrain from engaging in side conversations. We also encourage you to ask questions or give comments during the open forum. Again, thank you for your cooperation. The event will unfold in 3 parts, all taking place here at the 8th floor training room of the CCFC building and live streamed for other participants in their respective classrooms. The event will begin with introductory and opening remarks to set the stage. The first main part will feature a plenary talk by our speaker, who will share his insights. Following his talk, we will hear from our actors, one of our faculty members, and one of our contemporary world student. This will be followed by an open forum, and finally, the last part of the event will consist of the awarding of certificates, closing remarks, and a photo opportunity to commemorate the occasion. We will begin in 2 minutes, so hopefully you all settle down by then. Good afternoon, everyone. So, to officially commence our program, the moment of reflection and divine guidance, may we now rise for the prayer, and we respectfully request that you remain standing thereafter for the singing of our national anthem.
We wish to enter into silence and fill the silence with prayer. O one God of all nations, you created the earth and the cosmos in their differences, beauty and frailty. The diversity of cultures and religions seek you, the origin of all things. You want all to be for each other, not a threat, but a blessing. Our one world should be, by your will, a peaceful and habitable home. You created us all in your own image and likeness. We are your image. In all those that seek you in truth, you have inspired hunger and thirst for justice and a desire for peace. Awaken in all the religions and in the peoples of today, that they should be instruments and messengers of a better, more loving world. Amen.
Amen.
Please be seated. So a very warm welcome to Saulog 2025. It's fantastic to see such a great turnout here and a special virtual welcome to all of you joining us live online in your respective classrooms. I'm Jane Dorados, your MC for this afternoon, and I'm truly thrilled to be kicking off what promises to be an insightful and engaging exploration of our contemporary world. We're honored with the presence of our distinguished guests, our dedicated faculty members, and especially our bright and engaged students. Your participation is what makes Saulog the vibrant platform for intellectual exchange that it is. For those who may be new to Saulog, Saulog is a Visayan term for celebration or jubilation. And our event for today serves as a dynamic culmination of our contemporary world course. It's an opportunity for us to collectively delve into significant global issues, foster critical thinking, and encouraging meaningful dialogue. This year, we're focusing on a particularly timely and relevant theme, navigating the exciting prospects and intricate complexities at the intersection of artificial intelligence, culture, and development in our world today. Now, this juncture, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce a distinguished scholar within the Social Sciences cluster of the School of Arts and Sciences, an individual who champions academic excellence and inspires us all. Please join me in warmly welcoming Dr. Nelly Libaran, the Assistant Dean of the Social Sciences Cluster, who will deliver the opening remarks and share the rationale behind today's plenary talk. A round of applause.
Thank you, Nina. Dr. Jerome Alvarado Serrano, Department Chair of Sociology and Development Studies, to the hardworking and passionate faculty members handling the Contemporary World course, our resource speaker who will be introduced later. Good afternoon, and let me just say thank you for all your service. And of course, to the 1,700 strong students enrolled in the Contemporary World course or subject, a wonderful afternoon to all of you, including those who are in their respective classrooms. As we draw the curtain on our exploration of the contemporary world, it feels fitting that we culminate our journey by delving into a topic that so profoundly shapes our present and will undoubtedly define our future: the intricate interplay of artificial intelligence, culture, and development. Over the past semester, we have navigated this landscape of our modern world, examining how they are interconnected and how we are challenged, also with different opportunities. Today, my dear friends and students, we stand at the height of a new era, one where AI is no longer a futuristic fantasy, but a tangible force reshaping our societies, our values, and our trajectories of progress. I'm very certain that since January, right, you have started talking about these things. This afternoon, we will embark on a crucial discussion. We will explore the dazzling prospects that AI offers for development across various sectors. I am thrilled also to be listening to what our speaker would share to us. We will not shy away from the complexities that arise as AI increasingly permeates our lives, prompting us to critically examine its impact on our diverse cultures, ethical frameworks, and the very fabric of our human experience. You're also aware that you are now wearing artificial intelligence. Father resource speaker would also tell us that later. This conversation is particularly relevant here in the Philippines, in our city, as we strive for sustainable development in a world undergoing rapid, very rapid technological transformation. If you're not feeling that right now because of so many things, then we will in the near future. Questions like, how can we harness the power of AI in a way that is inclusive, equitable, respectful of our rich cultural heritage? Questions like, what are the potential pitfalls we must navigate to ensure that progress benefits all segments of our society? Lastly, my dear students and faculty, this talk is not about providing definitive answers. No one has that. But rather about sparking critical thinking and fostering a deeper understanding of the profound relationship between AI, culture, and development in our contemporary world. Let us engage in a fruitful dialogue, share our perspectives as we did in the last semester, and collectively chart a course towards a future where technological advancement and human flourishing go hand in hand. Good afternoon once again, welcome, and let the conversation begin.
Thank you so much, Dr. Libadan, for such insightful opening remarks and for underscoring the vital connection between our discussions today, the goals of the Contemporary World course, and our responsibility as global citizens. Now we move to the heart of our program for what promises to be a truly insightful plenary talk. We're incredibly fortunate to welcome a distinguished thinker who bridges the worlds of anthropology and the cutting edge of artificial intelligence. He completed his advanced Master of Anthropology degree with commendation from the Australian National University, ranked 9 in the world for anthropology. On returning from his studies, he worked to establish the Ateneo de Davao's undergraduate anthropology program and co-founded the Mindanaoan Anthropological Society of the Ateneo. During the pandemic, he oversaw the university's online shift as assistant to the academic vice president for online education. He mainly teaches anthropological theory and quantitative methods. His areas of interest include digital and machine anthropology, anthropologies of death, social media, and artificial intelligence. His diverse interests stems from a multidisciplinary academic background, which includes earning a degree in sacred theology, magna cum laude from the Loyola School of Theology, a Bachelor of Science in Management Information Systems from Ateneo de Manila University, and a stint as the DOST scholar at the Philippine Science High School, Southern Mindanao Campus. In addition, he has worn many hats as a parish priest, high school director and principal, and hospital chaplain. It is with great honor that I introduce to you Father Ulysses Cabayao, SJ. Let's give him a big warm applause.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Rina, for the introduction. First of all, I'd like to welcome you. Thank you very much, first, to Sir Jerome Serrano for the invitation. I feel very privileged to respond to this invitation, and I'm very happy to be here. Of course, I'd like to recognize also our Assistant Dean for the Social Sciences Cluster, Dr. Nelly Lambagan, and of course the faculty who are teaching this very relevant, very important course on the contemporary world. And of course, all of you students, welcome to this talk. Hopefully, this will stimulate our discussions on AI, that we do not just become passive users of AI, but that we strive towards molding and developing AI so that it could be a force of good in our society. I'd like to especially mention my anthropology students, who, despite the fact that I bore them with my lectures, still wanted to attend and sit in to this talk. So thank you for your patience and support. All right. So again, today I want to talk about artificial intelligence or AI. Something that we are, I think most of us, if not all of us, are very familiar with. But I'd like to talk about it from a different perspective. So instead of focusing on the technical details or what AI can or cannot do, what I'd like to do is to explore how AI affects our society and how society influences the creation and the usage of artificial intelligence. So, in fact, I think what I will try to do now is to offer a perspective which is mainly informed by my own disciplinary background as an anthropologist, and I will approach the question of what AI could mean in our contemporary world today. Okay. I have three main ideas that I want to share with you. If we can go to the next slide. So the first idea is that our understanding of AI should move beyond just asking what AI can or cannot do. Oftentimes the conversation has revolved on it's what it promises, no? Or what are the drawbacks of using it. But I'd like to push our discussion beyond just asking those things. The second idea that I'd like to share with you is that we need to view AI as a technology that mirrors our social relations. In other words, AI as a technology is not neutral. In other words, it's not value-free. But much of what AI can do or cannot do is very reflective of the values or the culture or the context of the society that creates or produces it. The third main point, okay, I noticed some of you are taking the notes. I don't know, maybe your professors have said that there will be a quiz on this. So I'll try to make sure that my lecture is as organized and as outlined as possible. So the third point, now to maximize AI's potential for society's benefit and to mitigate its harms, I propose, this will be the argument that I'll be making in this talk, I propose that we apply a framework to analyze how AI works, who it benefits, and under what conditions. Okay, so let's begin by understanding why it's important to think about AI in this way. The first concept or term that I'd like you to be familiar with is the concept of affordances. That would be the next slide. All right. Now, affordances might seem like a highfalutin term, but affordances is really a very simple idea. A simple but profound idea. Now, I'd like you to begin by thinking about everyday objects and how we interact with these objects. For example, you have here a door handle. And the way a door handle is designed is such that you can easily open a door by either pushing it or pulling it. Okay? So, the idea of how certain objects provide certain ways of interacting with them, this idea is what we mean or what we call as affordances. So it's about the actions that objects make possible or encourage us to do. So for example, again, another example is if you have there a gun, okay, what would a gun encourage you to do? Shoot myself. No. Let's not go there. Let's not go there. Yeah, it encourages you to, you don't exactly use a gun to to stir your coffee. Diba? The way the gun is designed is such that if you tinker with it, there's a trigger there, the tendency is to, parang play with the trigger. And that's what it makes possible. The gun doesn't allow you to plant a tree. Okay? The gun allows you or encourages you to do certain things with it. So that's, again, what we mean by affordances. Okay? Now, but this concept often overlooks how different people might interact with the same object in different ways, depending on their experiences or abilities. Okay? You can have your cell phone with you, but if you give it to someone who doesn't have any familiarity with the cell phone, they may not exactly utilize it in the same way that you do. Okay? But a cell phone allows you to do certain things with it. And there are certain things that make it usable in a certain way than other possible actions that you can do with a cell phone. For example, has any one of you ever thought of using a cell phone to wipe your butt? Unless you're into, real hard things, it's not exactly something that you'd like to wipe your butt with, no? But the very design of a cell phone makes you want or encourages you again to do certain things. But then again, people who might have different experiences or who may have different abilities may use it or interact with that object in different ways. Now, here's where we introduce this idea. Similarly, AI systems, AI technologies offer certain possibilities based on how they're designed and how we use them. So, the key point here is it's a two-way street. The technology influences us and we influence how the technology develops. Alright? Let me go to the next one here. So, AI systems can therefore guide or shape our actions in various ways. Alright? So, what I'm showing here is a slide that shows you basically the outline of the framework that I'd like to use in order to understand AI in the way that would attain the objectives that I mentioned earlier. Okay? Now, this is called the mechanisms and conditions framework. Okay? There's a woman, professor by the name of Jenny Davis, who wrote a book entitled How Artifacts Afford, and she basically discussed this particular framework. Okay? And she was proposing it as a way of understanding objects. Now, what I did was I tried to make use of this framework and applied it to an analysis of AI. So there are two main questions that this particular framework tries to address. The first one, in terms of mechanisms, is to look at how technology affords. In other words, what are the things that a particular technology can allow you to do? Okay? That is the mechanisms part. The other part would be the conditions part, which basically addresses the question for whom and under what circumstances does technology afford. So remember what I had said earlier in terms of how the use of a certain object could be affected by the experience or the ability or the context of the one using it. This is where it falls under that conditions part. Now, you might see beneath that are the words power and politics. Now, these are the other underlying structures or contexts that actually influence what kind of technology is being produced and how they're being used by the people who use them in their own daily lives. So that already also underlines and shapes what technologies become more popular, what technologies become viral, what technologies become commonplace, and what technologies become inaccessible to other people. Okay? So, in other words, what we're seeing here is, again, since we are students of this course called Contemporary World, we are trying to understand it from the perspective of how everything connects or relates to each other. Okay? Let me go to the next, to go in greater detail. So, under that mechanisms framework, you have certain things. Okay? An object can allow, encourage, discourage, request, demand, or refuse. Okay? So, for example, an object can make certain suggestions. They might suggest what you could do next. For example, when you start typing a text message, your phone, if you're using a touch-screen phone, your phone might suggest words for you to complete the sentence. That is a suggestion, an example of an affordance, for example, of a touch-screen phone. Another thing would be a requirement, which means that a certain technology might require certain inputs. For instance, a certain app might need your location in order to provide local weather updates. Diba? Sometimes you see in your phone, always allow, what's that? You have certain choices in terms of what you can do. The other thing is technologies can offer options. They offer possibilities without pushing you in a specific direction. So meron ganyan, no? If you enter a certain site, no? They offer you certain options in terms of what you can do. So it's not really required in a website. For example, what's required, halimbawa, if you're logging in, is you have to input, for example, your credentials, your email, and your password. That's required. Otherwise, you cannot take full advantage of what a web app can offer. Now, an option here is, it's just encouraging you, for example, gusto mo ba dark mode or light mode? So that's an example of an option. Another affordance would be in terms of discouragement or encouragement. Okay? Technologies can make some actions easier for you and some things harder for you to do. For example, this is my experience. No? If you subscribe to a certain website that offers, for example, some, let's say, 7-day trial, no? And then at the end of it, you can choose to cancel. There are certain websites, for example, that make it so easy to subscribe for you, but really, really hard for you to find out how to unsubscribe. Diba? Have you experienced that? But sometimes I get frustrated, scam talaga, budol talaga to, because kahit anong scroll ko, I want name apps, no? Ayoko mang-bash na mga apps dito. There are certain apps that are like that. No? They discourage you, actually, from unsubscribing. And so you end up often having hidden charges, or charges that you don't know in your phone. No? Nag-sign up ka sa Tinder, sinign up ang nanay mo, no? Tinder makes it difficult for you to actually unsubscribe. No? Hanapin mo pa doon, it's in a really fine print. No? And before you know it, you already have a subscription to pay. Okay? So that's an affordance. Another kind of affordance would be in terms of restrictions. So, certain technology might prevent you from doing certain things. No? For instance, right now, Facebook and other social media platforms, they often have rules against posting harmful content. Diba? If you're managing a page and somebody flags, for example, a post, you will see there a notification that tells you that your page will not be recommended because there's a certain content there that others found harmful or offensive. So, what they provide you or what they encourage you to do in that app is for you to delete it so that your page could be recommended and could appear in other people's feeds. Okay? So, these are instances of what we call as mechanisms. Now, let's take a look at conditions. We said that the way we use certain objects depend on context, abilities, etc., etc. So, to make the most out of certain technologies, in this case, to make the most out of AI, we need first a certain understanding, which is termed, the next slide, as perception. So that's the term that's being used here. Perception is described as what you know about the functions of a technology. So, to make the most out of AI, we need understanding. So, knowing what AI can help us with and what its limits are will affect how you're going to use it. Being aware of situations where AI is useful and where it might not be useful can affect your perception of how to use the technology. Also, the ability to recognize potential risks like privacy concerns, data leaks, and so on and so forth, also affect how you make use of a certain technology, in this case, AI. The other thing, which is very important, is in terms of dexterity. Simply put, it's the question of whether you have the skills and abilities to operate a technology. Okay? Now, you might be, your generation might take this for granted. No? But if you've ever had the chance to teach somebody older how to use a certain technology, then you will realize that what comes easy to you is something that really will befuddle someone who does not have the skills to operate a technology. No? I remember, I was a young boy then. There was a time when somebody older, maybe an uncle or an auntie, was asking me, paano ba i-on itong TV? No? So ako parang, all you have to do is to get a remote and press it. But during that time, wala pang remote. No? Dati kasi, kasalanan nila yung there's a knob where you change the channel. No? And remotes were only something that emerged, I guess, when I was a little bit older. No? So, skills. Basic skills in using technology like smartphones or computers is something that's necessary in order to operate, for example, or use artificial intelligence. Another example of a skill or an ability is your ability to communicate clearly so that the AI can understand us. If you cannot write sentences that are intelligible, you will also get poor results. No? As the output of the AI that you're using. No? In other words, much of what you extract out of that technology depends on what you already know. Okay? So, especially in terms of artificial intelligence, one of the important skills here to become dexterous, no, in operating artificial intelligence is knowing how to give good instructions for questions to the AI. Diba? So some people, maybe, you have a writing essay requirement for contemporary world, and you say, write an essay in contemporary world, and then I post my questions. And then you realize yung professor detects, bakit parang parang sagot dito? Na ChatGPT. But a really dexterous, really skilled user would phrase it differently. In other words, when you're prompting, there are actually different prompting frameworks. which they refer to as, in a very fancy terminology, called prompt engineering, diba? Which means that you follow certain guidelines when you're writing a prompt so that you can produce the best output possible from the AI. Okay? Now, the third thing is in terms of cultural and institutional legitimacy. So, in other words, how people use AI will also depend on how AI is acceptable or accepted or unacceptable within a certain community context. So, very important is to be able to take advantage of it is also to ask the question, how socially supported are you in engaging with this particular technology? No? So, in other words, those who become AI savvy could potentially come from communities that are very supportive, workplaces that provide, for example, sige, let's go for a premium or a plus subscription, hindi lang free subscription. How I wish, no? But often that's not the case, no? If you live in a community or if you live in an environment wherein people are culturally open to using new technologies, that's also a good thing. If you have professors who are very resistant or afraid of using AI, that's also going to affect how you're going to use it. Again, in terms of institutional legitimacy, policies and regulations that allow us or disallow us from using AI responsibly can also affect how we make use or the conditions that make the use of AI something that would be easier or harder for us. Okay, let me go to the next point here. So, this slide that you're seeing is where you put it all together. Where you have, in this inner circle, the mechanisms in terms of how a particular technology could be used, the conditions in terms of how circumstances of the user can affect how a technology can be used, and then beyond it, these are the other factors, no? Other broader, wider, deeper conditions that can affect how AI could be used, such as certain power relations, social impact, the embodiment of values in the kind of AI that we produce. So, for example, you might not have thought about it as much, but have you ever wondered why many generative AIs that we're using are very dependent on a chat window? But it could be it presupposes, if the interface is chat-based, it presupposes that you know how to read and you know how to write. Alright? So if you cannot read and you cannot write, you cannot interact with artificial intelligence. That's why one of the things that have emerged is there's a certain field in AI where they're only talking about how the UI could be improved or user interface could be improved, such as the use of voice. So now, halimbawa, Gemini is a free version where you can chat with it. If you're lonely, you can chat with ChatGPT voice. If I won't talk about the other feelings that teenagers go through. But I think you understand what I'm trying to say. Okay? So, much of that affects, there are certain power relations that determine who is being privileged by a certain technology. Why? Because in a certain culture, in a certain society, these are the ones considered to be valuable. So, halimbawa, one of the things that I was thinking is, if we're going to create, for example, an open source AI which we could deploy to far-flung areas, first consideration is, people are always talking about AIs like large language models, wherein kailangan you have access to the internet because running an LLM takes a lot of resources. Now, if you go to a far-flung school, you don't have such resources. You only have a computer with very minor specifications. Paano pagpatakbo ng AI that requires at the minimum, for example, at least 16 gigabytes of RAM? Doon, 16 gigabytes, minsan ka, walang computer, di ba? So, these are things which other people do not see, and therefore it shapes the kind of AI that's being produced. Of course, right now, parang there's also such a thing as small LLMs, small LMs, small language models that can actually fit in a mobile device such as this. So, in other words, if you take a look at it, a lot of our values in society are also embedded in how we develop the technology, what technology becomes easier for us to do, because of the examples. These are only a few of the examples that I can actually think of. Alright, now let's try to apply this framework. Now let's take a look at ChatGPT. Let's go to the next slide. Previous slide. Now, all of us are familiar with ChatGPT, an Gen AI language model that many of you might already be using. Of course, ChatGPT is not the only Gen AI that you can use. No? You have Claude, you have Cohere, you have Gemini, you have Quen, you have DeepSeek, etc., etc. No? In fact, there's so many kinds of Gen AI which are text generative that you can find on the internet. If you want to explore that, I don't want to gatekeep this because anyway, when I give AI talks, that's what I share. You can go to huggingface.co, and you can find there all sorts of artificial intelligence models, whether it's machine vision, Gen AI, and so on and so forth. There's a whole plethora of choices that you could find in that particular site. And what's nice there is all of them, most of them at least, are open source. So you could use them for free. But of course, there's a certain caution again when we say you can use them for free. I don't know how many of you have seen that documentary in Netflix entitled The Social Dilemma. Has anyone of you seen that documentary? Well, that's one documentary that I would recommend that you watch. In that documentary in Netflix, there's a recurring message there. Sabi nung sa documentary, when you're using social media, people like it because it's mostly free. Okay? But what they found out, or what they were trying to argue from all the evidences that they collated from looking at how social media works, is that most likely than not, if the platform is free, then that means that you are the product. In other words, how you interact is being collected as data to improve it. What you post will be stored there to improve the model even further. So whether it's social media or AI, if it's free, it's being offered for free, it's often the case that you become the product. So your data is collected and then it's being used to sell things to you. That's why in your algorithms, your feeds would often show you things that you like. If you are into dating, they suggest dating apps, dating sites. If you're into certain gadget, it always appears frequently on your phone, etc., etc. Because in the case, for example, of social media, it thrives on what they call as the attention economy. So, in other words, the economy of social media thrives as long as you pay it attention. And therefore, the design of social media is to always capture your attention all of the time. Kaya nga, it's so hard to resist not checking your phone, not posting anything, not using it, because it's really designed to capture your attention. Because the longer you stay on it, the more it becomes profitable. Okay. Now, let's take a look at ChatGPT here. If we were to apply the framework here, you could see some of the things, no? Where what ChatGPT can do in terms of what it demands, what it discourages, what it refuses, what it requests, what it encourages, and what it allows. For example, let me just highlight some of things. If you're using ChatGPT, at least the text-based chat window, it allows you to have conversations in plain language. And, of course, with the latest models, it can understand multiple languages. But that's not often the case with certain AI models. No? At least in ChatGPT, magaling din siya mag-Bisaya ngayon. So if you chat with Bisaya, it can actually understand you. Pero one of the early versions of Gemini, which was called Bard before, I tried Bisaya, pero it's worse sounding than Marocco. No? Diligent mo masabdan. No? But there, looking at here, no? So if you think of it in terms of how ChatGPT allows you to have conversations in plain language, and it could understand multiple languages, again, ang presupposition is that you know how to write, you know how to read, you know how to talk, and you know basically how to type in what you want to say there. Another mechanism is, unfortunately, you cannot access ChatGPT offline. It requires an internet connection to work. So that's a requirement, a demand, no? That it has to be connected to the internet. So in other words, you can't use it if there's no internet. No? So people who don't even have access to internet, much so if they don't have electricity, you cannot use AI. So you now begin to understand that even in the way a device or a technology like ChatGPT is designed, it privileges certain things. That you actually have electricity, no? That you can have an internet connection, no? And that if you want to make use of the full potential of ChatGPT, that you have money to burn, $20 per month for the Plus version. But if you want to access the Pro version, $200 per month. Okay? Now try asking your parents, "Ma, gusto ko maging business sa school, pwede ba subscribe $200 a month ChatGPT?" Let's see what the reaction would be to your request. Okay? Now, another mechanism of ChatGPT is, right now, when it was first released, you can actually ask anything of it. You can ask it to, which I tried, you can ask it for a recipe to create a homemade bomb. You can ask it to generate images which are offensive. But right now, it has been throttled down to give you an answer that it won't provide inappropriate or harmful content. So that's what it will refuse, harmful content generation. Also, ChatGPT, the way it's designed, is it encourages us to ask questions and explore new ideas. So sometimes there are prompts there that tells you maybe write a code for a game or something. So these are ways of how ChatGPT encourages you. And even when it answers, sometimes it provides a suggestion as to what you can do next. And sometimes, for example, another AI such as Perplexity, meron talaga nakalagay doon a set of questions that you can ask to follow up on the questions that you previously asked. Okay? So, now, with all of these mechanisms, I'm sure the question that I'll throw to you is, can you think of other ways or other mechanisms ChatGPT might influence how you interact with this technology? So ngayon, ang dami, no? If you're following, there's the release of a higher-end reasoning model called O3. No? There's GPT-4o, which creates all these viral photos of you as a toy figure or you as a Funko Pop figure, and so on and so forth. And so many things. So, very enjoyable things. No? And these are the ways, no? That you can interact with the technology. But then again, let's go to the next slide. If we take a look at conditions, there are many things that would also affect it, such as what we mentioned earlier, in terms of perception, dexterity, and cultural institutional legitimacy. Now, the whole idea here, for example, in terms of perception, if I don't understand ChatGPT's capabilities, I will only use it up to this much. And sometimes our use of ChatGPT is just when we're cramming. Some people are using ChatGPT. In fact, there was a recent news before, no, not before, just a few days ago, wherein they used a large language model to help diagnose a very rare disease. Other doctors were not able to catch it, but that particular AI was able to detect it. I don't know what problems in the world you want to solve, but I'm sure you're not putting it there in the AI. Minsan sa atin, sagutin lang to, question, sabi yan. So we're underutilizing it. So the whole idea is, so let me share a simple but very powerful insight about how AI works in our daily lives. We can think of AI as a dance, where it takes you to tango. On the one side, we have the technical aspects, how the AI is designed and what it can potentially do. But on the other side, we have the human element, which talks about how we use it, how we understand it, and how we try to fit it into our lives. Let's go to the next slide here. So that when these two sides work well together, you could see its impact on how we use it. When these two sides work together, when the dance steps, imagine people to people dancing, when their dance steps match, then amazing things can happen. For example, one of the impacts right now is that a certain use of large language models can actually result in effective learning. Although there is also evidence that a certain use of large language models actually deprives people of their capacity to think critically. So, evidence for this, evidence for that. And what is coming out of the literature, the salient point that is coming in the literature is that a specific way of using AI or Gen AI can actually have an impact in terms of learning outcomes. And that's why, as I said, if these two sides work well together, what you can have, for example, a more effective and efficient learning process. So you can have, it's like having a very patient and understanding tutor who is available 24/7 for you. Does not give you all the answers, but coaches you, engages you in a Socratic dialogue to actually train and harness your thinking. I created an AI app, which, mamaya siguro, if you have a question, I'll share it. I'll show you an app that I made, which tries to, which builds on some of the literature that I've looked at, and I've tried to implement it in terms of an app that you can use to enhance, for example, one's critical thinking. Another thing, if the dance steps match, you can have a more, people can work more efficiently. Imagine having a smart assistant helping you answer your emails, helping you schedule appointments, helping you organize your thoughts, helping you transcribe a lecture, and giving you, for example, a transcript and analysis of the lecture that you just listened to. Ganon. Another thing is it could also enhance your creativity. No? Think of having a brainstorming partner who never runs out of ideas. No? There is one guy, a very famous guy in the world of AI. He's not actually someone who builds AI, but he's someone who uses it. No? This guy, his name is Ethan Mollick. No? And what he says, one of the things that he says is, what's good about the use of AI is when you use it to provide you several suggestions on a particular thing. Usually, he said, no, people just use AI to make it do one thing, such as, okay, give me an example of this. Sabi niya, why not use AI to tell you, okay, please provide me 15 examples on this particular idea. So it's so difficult to come up with 15 ideas on a single thing, and that's where the power of AI comes in, because now you have multiple options to choose from. So that it can enhance your creativity. It can also help one in one's professional growth. One use of AI, for example, there's this company called Hume, H-U-M-E. They came up with the voice AI, where you can talk to the AI. Ang packaging nila ng kanilang AI is, it's empathetic AI. So the voice can change. No? The AI can actually be it's like having your own guidance counselor, your own psychologist, no? Your own therapist. No? Or in this case, it's like having your own mentor who could help you develop your own skills. Okay, now, let's go to the next slide here. Inasmuch as there is the promise of what AI can do, here's the interesting part. That same AI can feel completely different to different people. Just like a dance floor might be welcoming to an experienced dancer, but it can come across as very intimidating to a beginner. Okay? So, some people can use AI effectively because some people have all the support they need. They have good internet access, they're comfortable with using technology, they have a very supportive environment. But others might face obstacles, no? Because they might not be comfortable with the technology, their workplaces or their environment might not have figured out yet how to use AI. No? So, notice, the key message here is very simple. Okay? The success of artificial intelligence isn't just about having fancy, advanced technology. But the success of AI depends on making sure that everyone can join the dance regardless of their background or experience level. Okay? Next slide. So the way AI is designed and used has significant effects on society. For example, in terms of power relations or power dynamics, questions such as who controls the AI technology? Right now, you have companies like OpenAI, which previously, when they started supposedly as a non-profit company, but now they turned into a profit venture. No? Now, OpenAI has a lot of influence over how AI is developed and who can access it. So naturally, they'll be supporting whatever agenda that they may have in terms of creating AI. So these proprietary AIs, meaning AIs that you have to pay a fee in order to access, then it comes at a certain price, literally. But there are those who challenge them. Kaya merong iba who are coming up with smaller, faster, more intelligent models, and they're making it open source so that others who do not have the resources to subscribe can make use of it and take advantage of this particular technology. So, kita natin dito, we can see how even this power dynamics can affect how AI is designed and how it is used. So it can affect, for example, who gets access to this information and who doesn't get access to this information. Now, in terms of social impact, AI can either help reduce social inequalities or worsen them. For example, if AI tools are only available in certain languages, people who speak other languages might be left out. Halimbawa, one of the tools that researchers in the West find very extremely useful is the fact that before, if you conduct an interview, you would have to manually transcribe it. But now, AI can automatically transcribe an interview. But if the interview is in English, nga, dire, siya man mo interview, no? Nagkapuliti ang AI mag-translate, no? So that's why here, we can take advantage of it because right now, I mean, you don't have an AI that's very fluent in Visayan. Why? Because it's not after the interest of those who are building this AI to actually harness great data that could improve its language capabilities, for example, in Visayan. No? And even if you try to do it here, it's going to be very costly to develop such a model. Okay? So, makita mo, it benefits the West. No? So, it creates that social, it creates a big social barrier between those who can access it and those who can't. No? Kasi, if your AI can only speak in English, what if you want to deploy AI in a place na hindi kaya kabalo mag-English ang mga tao? No? Wala na. No? They can't make full use of that technology. And so therefore, they'll be left behind. It further creates a digital divide which can result in an even greater divide, social divide, I mean. Third point here, no? So the values reflected in AI, the values that are embodied in AI. As we said, no? Many researchers have pointed out that AI systems can carry the biases and values of their creators. Okay? So, depending who's building it, they will put in data that aligns with their values or that they find meaningful or informative. No? If they don't find it of value, they don't include it in the training data of the AI. Okay? They might also prioritize certain cultural values or certain viewpoints over others, which then affects the information that we receive as output from the AI. So in other words, when we look at it, AI is not as neutral and value-free as we think. It is very biased depending on who makes it and who benefits from it. So, question that we ask, so how, when we think about all these things, how does it influence our future with AI? Okay. Now, to that question, which I pose as an open question, maybe I'll come to my conclusion here. So, what we're saying here is that when the dance between AI and humans is in sync, okay, we see, for example, effective learning, greater access to information, greater efficiency in our task, a boost in creativity and innovation. However, if there's a mismatch, if the dance steps do not jive or do not align, we might encounter misunderstandings in terms of how to use AI tools. We will experience barriers to access due to lack of resources or skills. People will experience a sense of exclusion, especially those who are not comfortable with technology, among other things. Okay? That one. That's the conclusion. Next slide. So, but when AI systems are designed well, and when we have what we need to use them effectively, then great things can happen. We can learn new information easily, we can complete tasks more efficiently, our creativity can be boosted by new tools and ideas. But again, if there's a mismatch between how AI works and what people need or can do, then problems can arise. People might misunderstand how to use AI. Some might not have access due to a lack of their interest or technical skills. And then cultural difference might lead AI to provide answers or responses that might seem contradictory, irrelevant, or even confusing. So, one last point that I'd like to share. So, the success, again, of artificial intelligence isn't just about technological advancement, but its success depends on ensuring that everyone can participate and benefit. And here, our choices and values play a big role in shaping the future of AI. Okay? And maybe here I leave with maybe an invitation or perhaps a challenge for you. You will be building, you will be shaping how it's gonna be. So from our own disciplinary backgrounds, whether you're an accountant, you're a computer science major, whether you're a sociologist, anthropologist, whatever, it's about working together to make sure or to ensure that these technologies serve all of us, not just some of us, to ensure that it allows everyone to join this dance. Then we stand to benefit from it. Otherwise, it will only reinforce and perpetuate the inequalities and the problems that we are already experiencing in our society. So with that, I end my lecture. And thank you for listening. I hope you gained something from this.
Thank you so much, Father, for the enlightening and thought-provoking lecture. Your insights have allowed to spark a great deal of reflection among us all. So your discussion stays true to the premise that technology mirrors our social relations, which I believe most of us were able to attest to, given our experiences and perception with AI technology and our dexterity. Hopefully later on, when we dance with whatever AI we encounter in the future, perhaps maybe after this event, there is now breadth and depth on our dance with it. Some of those
Hello everyone, good afternoon. Thank you so much, Father Cabayao, for your insightful talk about AI. And this is my reaction. So the excellent proposals presented by Father Cabayao SJ offer a compelling framework for shifting our understanding and engagement with artificial intelligence or AI. Moving beyond simplistic questions such as AI is or isn't capable of, Father Cabayao, I advocates for a more nuanced and socially aware approach. These 3 points resonate deeply with the evolving landscape of AI and the critical need for responsible innovation. And I personally appreciate that and to elevate this discourse on AI. It's not really more on how can we benefit from it, or it's not just reduced to a more technical side, but we also involve social implications. The first proposal immediately hits the core to shift the conversation from just asking what AI is or is not and what AI can and cannot do. Much of the current discourse surrounding AI is fixated on its technical capabilities and limitations, which is actually the bias primarily. We are often bombarded with discussions about whether AI will surpass human intelligence, automate all jobs, or achieve consciousness, which are the questions that are basically being asked. Will AI replace us one day? Will AI become more intelligent than us? And while understanding these technical aspects is important, this singular focus risks obscuring the broader societal implications and the fundamental nature of AI as a tool embedded with human context. Father Cabayao encourages a more holistic inquiry into AI's role and impact by urging us to move beyond binary of capability and limitation by introducing the affordances, frameworks, and mechanisms. The second proposal is to approach AI as technology that embodies social relations. It's particularly insightful and perhaps the most challenging for me to fully grasp. It compels us to recognize that AI is not a neutral objective entity. Instead, it is designed, developed, and deployed by humans with specific social, economic, and political frameworks. The data it learns from the algorithms that governs its behavior and the purposes for which it is focused or reflect existing social structures, biases, and power dynamics. Therefore, understanding AI requires examining the social relations it embodies, the values, assumptions, and potential inequalities that are baked into its fabric. This perspective is crucial for mitigating the risk of AI perpetuating or even amplifying existing societal norms. Finally, the third proposal, to adopt an analytical tool to explore how AI functions, for whom and under what conditions, provides a practical pathway for enacting the previous tool. It calls for a critical and systematic approach to understanding AI's operational mechanisms, its intended and unintended beneficiaries, and the contextual factors that shape its impact. By asking for whom and under what conditions, this proposal highlights the importance of considering the diverse stakeholders affected by AI and the specific environments in which it is deployed. To me, it is more inclusive and holistic way of exploring AI because it recognizes the fact that there are various conditions and people that determine the usage of AI. The conclusion part of Father Cabayao's talk further reinforces the need for a multifaceted understanding of artificial intelligence, building upon the initial proposals for a more socially aware discourse. The conclusion emphasizes that AI's affordances emerge through complex interactions between technical mechanisms, social conditions, power structures, and user practices. So technical mechanisms refer to the underlying algorithms, data, and infrastructure that enable AI to function. However, I position these mechanisms as only one piece of the puzzle of the truth about AI. We cannot generalize the discussion of AI, or of AI rather, as in a technical manner. AI can be our collaborator in learning, a brainstorming partner as stated by our speaker. And these descriptions are not really technical, but are humanized terms. Let me use the term, humanized terms. The emergence of AI actual uses and impacts is significantly shaped by social conditions, encompassing the prevailing norms, values, and cultural context in which AI is deployed. This is one of the aspects that I really love because this is the first time that I heard the social aspect or social dimension of AI. So, for instance, the discrimination against the use of AI by some people who think that it is cheating or has no sense of human endeavor once you use it. Or I think it is where AI awareness comes in, and AI is a tool for collaboration and learning. And as digital natives, we are also called to embrace this. So there are beliefs, there are values that is very prevalent right now, which says that when you use AI, you become unethical, or when you use AI, you are like this and like that. And that is very prevalent, especially in social media. If you can hear, or if you already see rather in social media, may sinasabi doon na when, at least in our generation, I am proud to say that we were able to write our essays without using ChatGPT or without using AI. And that is one of the prevalent values that some people would have. And because of these talks and attending these kind of conferences and the like, I hope that we will be able to realize that using AI is not really a bad thing to do. In fact, it's our collaboration. We use it as a collaborative tool for us to learn and to make our work better. But of course, furthermore, power structures, the existing hierarchies and distributions of influence within society play a crucial role in determining who benefits from AI, who is potentially marginalized, and how the technology is ultimately shaped and controlled. So in our lesson, in my class, I also highlighted the idea that in globalization, not all good things that globalization has brought us can be experienced by all equally. There will always be the marginalized sectors who will not be able to experience the good things that globalization can bring us. And I think AI is not an exception to that. So, AI being one of the major factors in globalization is not an exception. And AI is also subject to power structures that limit it. Finally, user practices, how individuals and groups interact with and adapt AI in their daily lives, contribute to the evolving affordances and consequences of the technology. Another instance of honor would be the over-reliance on AI and making us gullible. So I actually wrote a paper about this. One of the problems of using AI is gullibility. If you say gullibility, being marupok, we easily believe on what AI-generated information. You easily believe on them or on your brother, and then we copy and paste it. And that is an instance where we call gullibility. We are being gullible. And that is actually a problem. I think this is where we employ human cognitive agency whenever we use AI-generated information. And this is what I am really advocating for, that there's nothing wrong with using AI for as long as you involve human cognitive agency. Dexterity is alignment in the norm, strengthening the cognitive agency's case or claim. At the end of the day, after maximizing AI for whatever we need from it, we should ask the question, or we should ask ourselves, is this true? How can I make it better? Where am I in this endeavor? This is necessary to achieve one of the goals of AI, to make everybody truly and productively participate in the dance. AI cannot evolve on its own, it needs us too. The proposals argue that we need to change how we think about and use AI. They highlight the important connections between technical issues, social factors, power dynamics, and user needs. This shows that we cannot just see AI as a technology. We need to look at how it works in different social and political settings. We should ask the benefits from AI and under what conditions it can be used responsibly. That's all, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bintayao, for those insightful points. Next, offering the student perspective, we have Ms. Nora Almezi.
afternoon, everyone. My name is Nora Alunasi, and in the perspective on students, yes, we can think of AI as our best friend, honestly. It has been with us through a lot, and it has been there in our times of cramming and late night days of when you forgot to do an assignment, and it's usually an essay for some reason, 500 to 1,000 words, and then you have to always cram that every night. But usually that is not a problem when ChatGPT is there by your side. So the 3 points that Sir Cabayao has talked about in his proposal that has already been mentioned by Mr. Bentayo, so I'm not going to really go through that one, but I'll be going through the thing that really stuck to me was when he mentioned the two-way street. It depends really on how we utilize the AI. We shouldn't really, as students, we shouldn't really, let's say, like, rely on it too much, because in some moments, in cases, AI will not be with us or by our side. There are times where we are left on our own, we do not have Wi-Fi, we do not have our phones, and then that's the time where you're like, oh no, usually ChatGPT makes this for me. I do not know how to solve this problem. And that often happens, I'd say, to students nowadays in our generation. Because AI is always there and usually is always there. And the thing that really stuck to me was Sir Cabayao talking about the affordance of AI. It really shows that the way you utilize it is how you will be able to learn as well with AI. You shouldn't really rely on it to the point where it does everything for you, but balance it out with your way of learning with AI. For example, me as a political science student, I use AI often to make it like give me questions or point out things from my lessons instead of asking it to answer the questions for me. And I don't know if you know this feature that AI has where you can have debates with it actually when you do like yung voice speaking. I always debate with AI because we would debate about conservatism and socialism and such. And it really enhances my way of speaking and my way of thinking on the spot and such like that. So moving on to where he also talked about yung quote niya sa ending about where AI doesn't really sit well with provinces or the marginalized people because AI really does only, let's say, benefit the privileged, I'd say, or benefit the people that has the let's say, they have the way to get Wi-Fi, they have their phones, they have a good placement in the area that they're at, where their signal is, of course, a good signal, that they will be able to get the access to using AI. And that is a problem because there are a lot of people out there that does not have the means of using AI, but really are, need to have a way to enhance the way of their learning because there's a lot of people out there with much more capabilities so that they would be able to enhance it in some way, but unfortunately are not able to because of their placement and the way that they're limited into using it. So of course, we also talked about this in our TCW class about globalization, where yes, globalization is a good thing, but at the same time, it has its bads where it only benefits, of course, the privileged or the ones who always have the opportunity of using AI. And to further this, actually, this is most of what I have taken from this in a student's perspective. And in the ending, where he talked about this quote of the success of AI is not the fancy technology or the technological advancements, but it's more on how everyone can be able to participate and use it and utilize AI in a way in which everyone will be able to benefit with it and not be scared of using it or ashamed of using it in in a person's way of enhancing or benefiting one's wisdom. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alinesky, for sharing your valuable insights as a student representative. She is an AB Political Science student. Okay. We now come to an interactive part of our program, the open forum. This is your opportunity to pose questions, share your thoughts, and engage further with Father and our faculties. We will be taking questions from both our participants here in the training room and those joining us via live stream. If you are with us in the training room, please wait to be recognized before posing your questions by raising your hand. For our online participants, your questions collected in advance or submitted live here will be reviewed. So before you ask your question, may I kindly ask you to introduce yourself, your name, by that I mean your name and your course or department. Do we have questions? Please raise your hand. Feel free to raise your hands if you have questions. Okay, so let me ask the first question. Father, with how AI works, this is the case, right? It's different in the sense that it's after you create a language system, code it and stuff like that, you can just release it out in the wild. It's very different with with the research that we do in the academy, and at the same time with the medical research that they do. Mostly it's human trial and stuff like that. Before it's released out there. But with AI, it's different in the sense that they release it immediately and you don't know that you are you're like a lab rat by the AI. So my question most likely be, how do we, is there a solution to this already, or is someone working on this already, checking up how, because they keep on upgrading it every now and then. You have no idea with the upgrades because it's free and you just use it.
Yes, thank you for the question, Marina. First is the idea AI is developing at a really breakneck pace. No? I follow whatever's happening. My Twitter account follows all these people, key people working on AI, influencers talking about AI, and almost every week there's something big that's happening in the world of AI. But I realized that it's actually a very small bubble. No? Most of the general public don't really talk about these things yet. So when it comes out in the news, sometimes I wonder, last month pa yan na, no? Because development is, as Marina said, it's as if they're always releasing models in the wild without having to go through a vetting process. Okay? Now, the way to understand, maybe one way I suggest of understanding it is to consider what drives all these developers to release AI models at such a breakneck speed. No? Well, you can understand it from the lens of neoliberalism. No? Because if you come up with the best, fastest, most intelligent model, this is where the money is at this point. No? So people are competing to release the best model, although they're saying it's a race towards AGI. No? which means artificial general intelligence, which is the idea of AI becoming almost sentient, no? Na hindi mo na kailangan input from another person because it could think for itself. And the race towards that is actually determining part of the kind of models that are being released. No? So, for example, if OpenAI releases a very powerful model, surely Claude will come up with an even faster model, Google will come up with an even faster model, because investors are looking to invest their money in the most powerful AI. Kasi nga, they're anticipating its impact in industry, its impact in really changing the world, at least from their perspective. So, the idea of just releasing model as soon as they're able to work on it is very fast, because it's actually a race for money as well. No? It's always a race for funding, because working on AI is very expensive. How many of you have gaming rigs at home? Anong setup nyo? Ilang gigabytes ang inyong graphics card? Ilan? 6 gig na RTX. What's the most RAM that you have in your gaming system? 4 gig? Ano nilalaro mo? Ano naman 4 gig? Baka hindi pa mag-on yung computer mo dyan. 16, minimum 32 at most, no? But to run AI, a decent AI, for example, na open source, which is almost as powerful as the second or the third most powerful model opened by the big AI companies. You would have, it's about 405 billion parameters, which means that you have to have a RAM of around 405 gigabytes to run it, at the very least. Tapos, we all know, especially the gamers here, you all know how expensive those graphics cards are. So, to run a decent AI model is very costly. No? And that's why you need more funding in order to generate it. No? So, that's why it's really driven by economic interests. No? Of course, some are phrasing it. No? Companies would release big models, and then from the open source community, especially the Chinese developers, they're coming up with something at a fraction of the price. No? But when we're coming up with it, it's only because they want people to invest in their projects as well. No? Because they can offer it at a lesser cost, at a more powerful, lesser cost but more powerful. So ibig sabihin, as an investor, doon ka. Kasi you get more bang for your buck. Diba? So that's maybe one thing of understanding how this whole thing works. No? And that's why one of the critiques about how AI is being developed is it's really very profit-oriented. And that's why, unlike, for example, academia, where it goes through a very long vetting process before something is released, here, almost every week, some company releases a new model. So maybe that's one way of trying to understand why this is the case, and why maybe it's so difficult to actually stop them from releasing it in the wild. Also, one way of assuring, kasi there's a thing that they call as evals, so, which is short for evaluations. There are different evals, no? And these are programs or a series of tests that they subject the AI to. And this is what determines the rankings of AI. If they're able to pass a certain eval, there's another eval for math and science, there's an eval for talking about human interactions, there's another eval for coding. If they get high scores there, that determines their placing in the ranking. No? Actually, if you follow the world of AI, there's always a leaderboard. No? And this is what just like siguro if you're into gaming, no? This is what you follow, and ito AI gamitin ko kasi itong top of the league at this point. No? So ganun ang labanan. No? So the assurance is the evils are there to check if the model that they release is viable or powerful, and that determines parang the kind of market that it creates. No? So there's an incentive for them to really release powerful models which are vetted by these evils. No? Because if people see that they're on the top of that ranking leaderboard, then that's where investors will be going and will be putting in their money. Okay, so I hope that clarifies that question.
Sir, that's the question.
Salamat for a very brilliant presentation. Actually, yung nagpag-partner students ko lang talaga yan. Father, while you were talking, actually I asked AI ChatGPT a question. Tinanong ko yung ChatGPT, what is the most salient and critical question in the context of artificial intelligence and its interface with culture and development? Ito yung sagot niya, Father, and I would like you to respond to the answer of ChatGPT. Sabi ni ChatGPT, the most salient and critical question in the context of AI and its interface with culture and development is this: who gets to shape the design, values, and deployment of AI technologies, and whose voices are excluded?
Yes, I think very much so. The two questions that ChatGPT answered were the very same things that I actually raised in the talk. No? Because we know very well that AI is not a neutral, value-free technology. So it's very dependent on who gets to shape it, whose voices get followed when AI is being developed. No? So halimbawa, previously there was OpenAI. When Elon Musk acquired Twitter/X, no? He came up with Grok. How many of you have been using Grok? Right? It's free in beta version. Now you have Grok 3. Now, Elon Musk envisions Grok as something that will challenge OpenAI's models. No? But the thing here, this is where this is where the question that Sir Dennis comes in. No? This is a question that ChatGPT poses. Whose voices will be heard when AI is being developed? So in this case, question, no? Grok, which falls under Twitter, which has been acquired by Elon Musk, and you all know how Elon Musk operates. No? Some would call him a saint, some would call him crazy. Depending on whose side you're on, you might think that this is a good idea or this is a bad idea. But here's an example of how a single voice, very powerful, very influential voice in American politics. Right? You know how Elon has been appointed to head the Dodge, no? Department of Government Efficiency, which was actually a play on the Dodge coin, which I invested in but lost my money. 5,000 pesos ko, nawala. But kaya I hate Elon Musk. So you can imagine, you're putting in your trust on a guy which determines how AI is going to be developed. And all his biases, or his whatever, that's going to shape how AI is going to be. Now, of course, Elon Musk is just a single person. He's only a single guy. But it's an entire system of people who might have calling the shots, are calling the shots right now in the world of AI. People have money. Kaya, who are the voices that are sort of charting how AI is going to be? Bill Gates, Sundar Pichai. You know Sundar Pichai? Head of Google, no? Gemini. Elon Musk, Sam Altman. No? There are a few other scientists. The one was recently awarded Nobel Prize, Dennis Saris, no? Who has been hired by Google to head their DeepMind project, which is their advanced AI project. So now, he's been hired by that company. Another guy, Jeffrey Hinton, who also won the recent Nobel Prize. But he seems like a voice in the wilderness. No? He's warning about the impact of AI, but all the rest are very optimistic and enthusiastic about it. So what are we seeing here? Clearly, it seems there's much to be said about how AI could be critiqued. Because the kind of AI that emerges after all this, if you take a look at what's happening now, is being dictated by the people who are in the echelons of power, position, and privilege. Okay? So, in other words, I think part of the challenge here, how many here are computer science students? Ayan, di ba? You've experienced parang how training a model is difficult. No? Nandun na ba kayo sa stage na yun? Wala pa. Or anyone who's into robotics engineering, it's a challenge. No? Kumbaga, when you're building, when you're harvesting a data set to train an AI, parang what you put in it also reflects where you're coming from. No? Kaya, one of the curious things about AI is there are specific AI models which Sir Akin will like it very much, are meant for role-playing. No? They're especially designed for dungeon masters. No? So those of you who are playing PNP, that's a good thing. No? Kasi you don't have to come up with ideas. All you have to do is to use that AI, and you can come up with a script, you can come up with settings, situations, etc., etc. Now, you might wonder, bakit may AI for gaming, for RPGs, pero wala kang AI addressing the needs, for example, of street children. Diba? Maybe if someone comes up an AI for street children, maybe an AI that tells them how to maximize their profit in terms of begging. By the time they won't be begging anymore, you'll be begging for their services. Diba? But why isn't anybody developing that? Kasi nga, yung voices, very important to consider now, is who's calling the shots in terms of how AI is developed. That's why what we're saying is other voices need to be heard. No? Other people have to come into the picture, not only to build it, but also to critique it, so that we have a more equitable AI system. Otherwise, the danger of it is, yes, you have the most advanced technology, but it will not solve our social problems because it will only reproduce the inequalities that we're experiencing now. It will only reproduce and widen the gap that we are experiencing now between those who have and those who have not. So, time and time again, at least the question and the answer and the question that Sir Dennis raised in terms of chatting is still very important. And that's why in your The Contemporary World course, we're considering it from different angles. We're trying to take a look at it from a more holistic perspective so that we see how the impact of this, affects that. In other words, you see how all of us, in a sense, are interconnected. And in a way, what happens here is not isolated, but it's also going to affect not only this technology, but also the technology affecting other people and so on and so forth. So if we have that kind of perspective that takes into account how all of things fit together, which is very challenging and very difficult, I think your generations will hopefully stand a better chance of leveling the playing field. So those who are into computer science, yes, go into AI, but don't neglect the lessons that you learn from contemporary world, because you're not working in isolation. You are a voice adding to the voices that are already dominant in the industry. What kind of apps will you create? What kind of problems are you going to solve? Don't solve their problems. Solve the problems that you see around you. And that's, I think, how we could make better use of this technology that we call artificial intelligence. So everyone, not only CS students, wherever you might be, Pulsar, whatever, there's already several apps, for example, for legal transcripts, for analyzing They're selling a rather shabby app, which they're milking would-be lawyers. There's an app that often appears in my Facebook to help student lawyers, diba? Para draft their cases, understanding quotas. Pero it's just a simple thing, pero pinagkakitaan, they're charging a high price for it. But you can easily do it. No? But of course, parang if you don't have the dexterity for AI, you'll say, uy, wow, gusto ko to. So, in fact, it's a challenge. We're living in a world right now wherein people are becoming more multidisciplinary because the problems are more difficult. So, ibig sabihin, not because you're in the humanities, not because you're in the social sciences, not because you're in this, doesn't mean that we should not learn this technology anymore. Okay? It's a challenge to become even more savvy in these things. Because your expertise in that thing will be, your expertise in a certain domain will affect how you interact with this particular technology. And I think that's something that we need in order to broaden and deepen our appreciation of AI so that it could really contribute to much greater social good. It's a lengthy response, but I hope Sir Dennis will give me an A.
Speaking of inequalities, we have one question posed by an online student. Okay. So what about the issues in the arts or creatives industry with the use of AI? Is it even called art if it is not made by
Well, thank you. That's a very burning question right now in the world of AI, no? In terms of so-called AI art. Okay? There are different opinions on it. Now, let's explore the spectrum of opinions. Maybe I'll just take things on the one hand, there is the opinion that this is not art at all because it capitalizes on other people's creative output, and what AI does is basically steal the original ideas in order to rehash it and form it into something else. So there's no actual generation of output that stems from ideas of the human soul or the human spirit or the humanity of people. It's just, it's fake. But on the other hand, there are those who contend that this is actually shattering or challenging the so-called gatekeepers of what constitutes art. They're saying na, well, art is not just for the elite people, but people who don't have experience in art can actually create quote-unquote art. No? I don't know how to paint, I don't know how to draw, but I know how to write a good prompt so that ChatGPT can produce a good vector illustration for me. No? So, halimbawa, hindi ka marunong ng Adobe Illustrator. How many of you know how to use Adobe Illustrator? Just a few, di ba? If you want to create vector art, that's usually the place to go. Ngayon, where do you go? Canva. Where do you go? Yeah, but if you know how to use ChatGPT or Gemini, you can ask it to create a vector model, for example, of your photo. And what takes hours producing through Adobe Illustrator will just take you 1-2 minutes, and then you have it. Pero minsan pangit ang labas mo. But the point here is, di ba, it makes the barrier of producing the kind of thing that you want easier. Pero there's the burning question, what is this art? No? Sabi ng mga, on the other hand, the traditionalists are saying, that's not art. But on the other hand, they're saying, who gets to define what art means? Okay? So, that's the spectrum of debate there. Now, the question here is, depending on where you're coming from, again, you might have certain biases, no? Or beliefs about what art should be, and they may be also reflective of how you were brought up, the kind of things that you've learned, and so on and so forth. So up to now, it's still an ongoing debate. No? So the debate is framed in terms of whether AI can be considered art or not. Okay? So maybe when you leave this talk, you go in, you want to impress your date. Well, let's talk about something else. Huwag naman, is AI art or not? I'm sure your date will give you. Okay, thank you. I hope that answers the question of the common post it online.
Hello, Father. I have a question. Unfortunately, I don't teach G12 and 11, so I don't have students who will be clapping.
Oh, let's go.
So, Father, I wrote my question, so I'll just read it. So, my question is about the rampant misinformation and disinformation that perpetuates in social media today, especially now that elections is fast approaching. One of the many affordances that AI provides is for the users to deliberately distort or concoct information designed to attack the credibility of the targets, in particular, and in general designed to alter public perceptions. And I think we know that there is power dynamics here, because those who can deliberately alter information have access to the affordances of AI, while the majority, I think, whose public perceptions are eventually changed come from the majority, who may eventually decide to vote on the basis of wrong information. So, what are your thoughts about this topic? Is it even possible to create an AI tool that will effectively mitigate the problem on misinformation and disinformation, while at the same time respecting, for example, the right for free speech and cultural expression?
Very interesting question, Sir Joe. My quick answer to that is, if you can create AI to foment fake news, you can create AI to curb fake news. And that's why AI is really a double-edged sword. You can create a system that could actually filter, and in fact, there are AIs that are already being deployed to actually screen whether certain tweets, for example, or certain posts were not only generated by AI, but whether these posts are actually factual or not. But that's very difficult to counter. No? The whole idea of it is to think of it in terms of it's not AI's problem. No? It's a problem of those who want to perpetuate a certain discourse or not. And those who want to perpetuate a certain discourse would often have the resources to be able to fund an ecosystem, for example, of trolls using AI to generate content, or they could pay companies who could create content which are AI generated, which could keep on perpetuating and maximizing, for example, a certain discourse that they want to propagate. Okay? So, problem natin dito is, again, not so much AI, but really, again, the interfacing between the human element of it and the whole politics surrounding it and how AI is used. So, given what we have right now, we can, of course, offer some kind of resistance to that. Facebook is now becoming more proactive, but I think they backed down a bit when Trump came into power. X or Twitter, instead of relying just on algorithms to detect fake news or disinformation or what, now they've instituted, I don't know, I'm sure you all notice it, community notes. Diba? The community notes was an attempt to curb what is fake news and what is real news, and what is factual or what is not factual. But then again, even with such a structure in that particular ecosystem, marami pa rin naglalagay sa community notes that are actually misleading. And so sometimes there are certain posts there that are debated by so many people commenting on their community notes kasi sabi ng isa, hindi totoo yan. Sabi ng isa, totoo yan. Sabi ng isa, hindi totoo yan. So, in other words, the affordances of the technology has included that part to be able to verify information, and yet people are using it to continue spreading fake information. No? So it's not the system's fault per se, but it's how people are making use of it. That's really, again, still the same issue. No? If we live right now in a very polarizing society, the problem, maybe one of the things that we could check as a problem is the affordances of social media. Before social media, traditional media outlets used to be the only opinions, and people who would use it would be the only opinions that you would hear. Now with social media, everyone has a voice. No? Even those we did not recognize before. And it's causing a lot of concern, a lot of confusion, a lot of resentment, a lot of anger, because now you're hearing voices that you would not normally hear before. But the affordances of it have created such a situation. But it's not as if it was not present before. It may have been present before, but there was no technology to amplify those differing and often contradicting voices. So again, we go back to the whole idea of how society sort of shapes the technology. And yeah, parang the technology could either, one of the things, in many anthropological studies, what they found out, Daniel Miller, a very famous, very well-cited anthropologist based in the University College London. See, Daniel Miller once came up with a book because he was one of the first ones to study Facebook. And one of the insights from his study of Facebook in terms of its usage in Trinidad and Tobago, sabi niya, actually, the kind of Facebook that you see depends very much on the culture that wherein it is being used. No? So what happens is that Facebook only amplifies the existing culture. Kasi pag tumingin ka sa Facebook, halimbawa, if you were in Australia, no? For example, before when I was doing studies, ang Facebook doon ng mga friends ko, hindi kasing chismoso ng mga Facebook ko dito sa Pilipinas. And the rest is the same Facebook, but people there are not really fond of posting very personal. They barely use Facebook to rant or express their ano. Pero pagdating sa aking contacts ng Facebook Pilipinas, wow, drama queens, drama kings. No? Grabe, issue after issue. Wala na, parang ang sarap magpasa kasi it's one issue after another. Pero yun sa Australian moods ko, wala, boring. Walang, kung may picture ng sunset, picture ng, ano ba to? Mas okay pa sa Pilipinas kasi minsan mga scandal photos. Minsan maraming gusto mag-usapan. Kaya tuwa-tuwa, don't be surprised. There was a time before when Mark Zuckerberg, remember, everyone was rejoicing when Mark Zuckerberg said, we'll be providing Facebook access in places where parang that's not normally reached by other media companies. Now, you might think, wow, ang bait naman ni Mark Zuckerberg. But, if you think about it, we said kanina, halimbawa, in the case of social media, it thrives on attention. No? And Facebook, if you look at the demographics of it, Philippines is one of the heavy Facebook users. So, if you're going to make your company profitable, you have to increase access to people who use Facebook at least 74-80% of the time. So, it makes sense to make it available and to the Philippines. No? Kasi tayo nagpapabuhay sa Facebook. Okay. So, anyway, the point being is that the interfacing and the, what we call this, the intersection of human society and technology is such that technology amplifies what is there. So therefore, what needs to be addressed sometimes is not the technology itself, no? But it's only highlighting an even deeper rift that is already happening in society. So I hope that I'm able to answer, address Sir Jerome's question. Let's give another hand to Sir Jerome.
Good afternoon po. So, I am Albert Yatanda from Computer Engineering, and I am a student of Ulysses. So here's my question. It's rather a long one, so please kindly follow along. So in the talk, the main form of AI we tackled are ChatGPT and other large language models, which are under the branch of machine learning. So the fact that this branch requires large amounts of data from users and developers, these would eventually lead to biases and would ultimately depend on the large data being fed to the AI model. I did some research during the talk and I found out that there are other branches independent to machine learning, like robotics and expert systems. These branches require a purely factual data like a set of rules to perform a very specific task. My question is, have you encountered studies under these branches, specifically robotics and expert systems? And what is your input regarding the role of conditions and context in the development of these branches?
Okay, very good question. And sometimes that is what people say, in certain fields where artificial intelligence is being used, such as robotics, how can that be affected by these biases that we're talking about? One quick answer to that is, every time it involves people building something, there's going to be some bias involved in it. Even when you're programming, you might think that it's a very straightforward thing when you're programming, but that's also shaped by, even the kind of apps that you would use. To address directly, there are some studies about robotics. Some anthropologists at MIT did a field work in terms of a certain robotics company. And they found out that even things as simple as how robots should be interacting with humans, that's not a neutral thing. It prioritizes certain perspectives, certain attitudes, certain cultural dispositions, such as, for example, they're saying that one of the curious things that's most difficult is yung eye movements, when they were creating a robot. I forgot the name of the robot, wherein it's just a face which is supposed to mimic human interactions. And how they made it was that certain, yung focus nila on how the eye is supposed to communicate sincerity, you're supposed to look straight at the person's eye. But that's not exactly the case in many cultures. If you look people straight in the eye, they'd say, tapos magkakabuha. It will not be perceived as sincerity. It will be perceived as aggressiveness. In another context, if I look straight at the person's eye, and I'm talking to you and I say, parang kasi nga ako, sabihin siya lagi sa akin. Different context, And yet, when you program such reactions in a robot, you are presupposing that this is how the robot should be reacting, because this is how you were used to interpreting, for example, certain eye movements. Okay? So what that means is that even in such contexts, such as robotics, yung Boston Dynamics, they were looking at how people are supposed to walk, supposedly upright, Parang they're always trying to make the robot stand upright. But if you look at certain cultures, how people walk is not always like that. Mga Amerikano lang mahilig mag ganyan, But in Asian cultures, especially if you're walking, you're supposed to parang walk in a certain way that's not the straight robot. Pero right now, all these Western companies are building robots that are supposed to stand round straight. Now, that's an example of how culture comes into play in terms of how these robotics are being designed. So, in other words, even that, expert systems, all these agricultural systems, they're always coming from the experiences of those who are building them. So, you cannot ignore that, and you must always be conscious as a computer programmer that when you're building, you must be able to question yourself, what am I presupposing as something that's normal that may not actually be normal for other people? Okay? So all these aspects about user interface design, even the underlying algorithms, they all betray the biases that we have as human beings. Does that answer your question? There's an interesting work there from anthropologists at MIT. Sorry, Ma'am Rina. There's a question. Ma'am Rina will be moderating.
In the current status quo, LLMs and AIR is built by stealing copyrighted works from writers and artists. In the modern context, students already experience cognitive decline because of AI. Literacy rates are decreasing because of AI, along with environmental concerns and the capitalist system exploiting AI to replace workers. AI to me will never be okay. I speak as a creative, an environmentalist, a writer, and a student, a member of the working class. And this is genuinely concerning to me. So long as capitalism and neoliberalism is the modern framework in which our society is built upon, in my eyes, AI will never be ethical. And I would like to be enlightened. Now my question is, how is everyone okay with AI?
Very good question, and I appreciate, I think, the passion in which, what's your name again? Sorry?
Sebastian and Saulog.
Oh, Sebastian. I very appreciate the passion that you have regarding how AI should be treated. And as I said, much of it really is how we see AI depends very much on how we have experienced, as we've shown here, how we've experienced how to work with technology, how its impact has been, for example, in other fields. So, in other words, I think voices like yours should be included in terms of discussions regarding this technology. Because sometimes people are blinded to the idea that others are being milked by this technology. They are being deprived of opportunities for showcasing their creativity because other people can quickly take advantage of what they have created and put it up for consumerist purposes. So I think the whole idea here is AI is a reality that we have right now. How AI will turn out to be, whether it's going to be a good thing, a bad thing, a thing that we should be careful about when we're using it, is something that must engage everyone. In fact, as I said, everyone should be able to talk about it, to discuss it, to debate it, because that will help shape how this technology is going to become in the future. If it turns out bad, because we have ignored voices that talk about how it is dangerous, then that's on us. If it turns out good, because we have listened to voices saying that we should be careful about all these things, then that's also on us. Okay? So right now, the way Sebastian is seeing it, is that AI is not something that's good because of the reasons that he mentions. And there is some truth to what he is saying. That as a matter of fact, many people are milking what other people have done because they want to come up with models who could produce better and better works. But are those whose works have been stolen from them harvested as part of the data that is used to train AI? Have they been compensated properly and adequately? That's a big question mark. Because right now, the data that you often have are sometimes being accessed by companies. There was an issue before with Microsoft and OpenAI because it was found out that Microsoft was actually lending our data to OpenAI. So that's where the problem is. In other words, is AI at the moment fair? Is AI at the moment ensuring that we all benefit from it? That's a big question. Is AI at the moment promising what others say is a good thing or not? If the answer to that is no, then maybe we should rethink how AI should be. Because now that it's there, it's something that, it's difficult at this point to just stop it entirely. But you can mitigate the harms that it does so that it could benefit rather than continue to marginalize or oppress or perpetuate the inequality in terms of access and resources that people are already experiencing at this point. So, very good point, Sebastian, that you raised. And yun nga, are you a computer science student? You're a science student. Kaya nga, and this is, I think, a challenge to you guys. Just because the guys here in computer science, that you don't ignore inputs coming from psychologists. And just because you're a psychologist doesn't mean I should just stay in my lane because I don't know anything about what they're doing anyway. We are moving more and more into a future wherein we should be collaborating. Because, as we have seen, problems are becoming more complex and approaching it from a single lens is more disastrous. Because there are many lenses to consider when you're approaching questions of social problems or even technologies that are being built that promise to be a good thing, but right now in actuality are doing certain harms, then we should be included and we should have our voices heard in that conversation. Okay? So, thank you for raising that concern. And as I said, very important that we don't discourage, that we don't ignore, but rather all of us who are engaged in the creation of AI should have that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Father. So due to time constraints, only one question can be accommodated at this time. So we plan to collect, because they're very invested in the questions, we will collect it and forward it to Father later. Okay? So one last question, please.
So good afternoon, Father. So I am Sky Green, we came from
Sky.
Yes, the Sky.
Sky.
Sky Laki po. So from the class of Mr. Dennis po. I am a chemical engineering student as well as my classmates po. In the context po, in our field, the Board of Chemical Engineers po already raised a resolution to the Congress in which to regulate AI use kasi it's very rampant na and it is evolving and it can be, magamit siya in a wrong way to our field. So it should be regulated and to implement our regulations well. Anyway, I would like to take this opportunity to ask, kasi everyone here will be future professionals po. And it is part of the affordance of AI to use it or to maximize its advantages. But sometimes it may lead to a bad thing po. So as a future professional po, what should be the borderline or the parameters for us to balance the ethical concerns and but at the same time to optimize its advantage para man naman makakamit yung AI in a good way. In a sense that AI will to replace us as our work in that context.
Okay, very good question, Sky. And I think a question that we should always be asking ourselves every time we use AI to make life easier for us, quote unquote. No? Here's what studies are showing. No? There's literature that shows that AI can increase learning efficiency. But there's also literature that shows us how damaging AI can be in terms of learning. Especially, for example, let me state it in the concrete. When you're using AI to generate ideas, that could impact your own critical thinking process. In other words, instead of you thinking about an idea, no, you offload that cognitive process to AI, then you don't train your mind to think. Alright? So in other words, it might seem like the most efficient thing to do, but you are depriving yourself of the opportunity to build on a skill which is very crucial for you. Because what studies have found out right now is that AI works very well for those who are already domain experts in that field. If you do not have expertise in that field and you use AI, it will only make you more dependent on AI and less of an expert. But if you're an expert, in other words, you know what to ask AI for, you know how to interrogate the output that AI produces. In other words, you can collaborate with AI if you're an expert in the domain and also an expert in using the technology. So what does that mean? In the concrete, looking ahead, your training, the training that you receive here to become future professionals in your field means that this is the time to build the very basic skills. Okay? And the basic skills, when you're writing, is all about disciplining your mind to think of an idea and to articulate your idea. If you offload that and you pass it on to AI, you lose the opportunity to build your skill in articulating what you think and in coming up with original ideas. Sure, you might receive an A, no? Kasi ang ganda ng output, no? But when the time comes when that skill becomes necessary, and wala kang AI to rely on, kawawa ka. Okay? So, what I'm saying here is, do not offload the necessary critical thinking skills to AI. Here, in the university, there are other ways of using AI, such as, if you want to engage it, like Laura mentioned, in a debate, that's good. But if you ask it because speed run ka na, you want to submit something because 10 minutes na lang, no? If you do that, yes, you might get a good grade if your professor is parang not well versed in AI-generated output, pero you'll only be cheating yourself of the opportunity to develop that skill. There's a story which I heard from a talk delivered by a Scandinavian guy. I forgot his name, but I listened to that talk. He says, and his example was, you all know pole vaulting? Yes? There was a famous video in the Olympics na talo siya sa pole vault kasi may sumabit. Remember that? Okay? Hindi yan ang problem ng mga Pinoy. Anyway, so, this time to say that in the field of pole vaulting, they used to use these hard wooden poles, no, when they're pole vaulting. And then initially, they can only jump so high using those poles. And then eventually, there was technology that improved the poles that they were using. And at first, people were complaining, bakit unfair? Kasi sila ganito, itong gamit namin. And so they said, people were cheating kasi they're using this. Okay? After some time, when everyone had access to the same technology, people were developing poles that were more strong, but at the same time very flexible. No? So it could propel people to jump higher. Now, what had happened then when that technology was eventually adopted and absorbed in the field of pole vaulting was that previously the world record was only up to a certain point. But when everyone made use of that technology that helped the pole become stronger and more flexible, suddenly the world records were higher than what it was before. Okay, you get my point? We all want people to jump higher. No?
But before we get to that point, would everyone have access? And would everyone have resources to be able to do that? Because otherwise, if there are people who feel that they don't have access to it, that they're making use of it, people will call that shitty, that's Albaya. So, my first answer, build your basic skills. Do not deprive yourself of the opportunity to build basic skills in thinking, in writing, and speaking. Okay? So whatever your professors give you, it's very important to do it first on your own. No? Because that you owe that to yourself to build those skills. And then second answer to that question is that we envision a time wherein the use of certain technologies will be made available to all so that we can jump higher. We can all jump higher. Okay, does that make sense? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Father, and to all those who participated in the engaging forum. So it's clear that Father's talk has resonated deeply and sparked meaningful conversations. So as a token of our sincere appreciation for sharing his expertise and time with us, we now have the honor of presenting a certificate of appreciation and a small token to our esteemed plenary speaker. May I request Dr. Serrano to please come forward to make this
So everyone's following Ulysses, come forward, please. On behalf of the Department of Sociology and Development Studies, I'm very pleased and honored to renew this citation for Father Ulysses, our plenary speaker for this afternoon. This certificate of appreciation is given to Father Ulysses S. Cabayao, SJ, in grateful recognition of his invaluable contribution as the plenary speaker during the Contemporary World Days, Saulog 2025, with the theme AI, Culture and Development, Navigating Prospects and Complexities in the Contemporary World. Given this 23rd day of April 2025 at the Training Room, 8th floor CCFC at Cabayao University, signed by yours truly, the chair, also signed by Dr. Ulysses, Assistant Dean of the Social Sciences Cluster, and to be signed by the Dean of the School of Arts and Sciences, who is out for an official engagement outside of the university, Dr. Renante P. Pilambi. So, Father, this is our certificate of appreciation for you. And also our humble token. Thank you very much for this invitation. And I also ask the faculty members from the Department of Sociology and Development Studies to please come forward together with all the faculty members teaching G12 and 11 to also do the same. And let us have for the opportunity with our plenary speaker this afternoon. And later for the students, we will also have a photo opportunity with our plenary speaker.
One, two, three, smile. Another. 1, 2, 3.
And as chair of the department, I'm also very pleased to award a certificate of appreciation to our two reactors, namely from the side of the faculty, Mr. Jason James B. Cabayao. And for information of everyone, Mr. Cabayao is a faculty member of the philosophy department as well. And then the same appreciation, the same certificate of appreciation is given to our reactor from the student side, represented by Ms. Nora Saulog. Please literally political science. Thank you very much. Let me also ask our plenary speaker
Congratulations for this great opportunity.
One, two, three. Another one.
To bring our formal program to a close and to offer some final reflections on our successful plenary talk, it is my pleasure to introduce again the Chair of the Department of Sociology and Development Studies, Dr. Jerome Ezra.
So good afternoon, everyone. Before I give my closing remarks, let us give another round of applause for our friends for being very engaging, very passionate, and talk and providing us a very comprehensive framework to better understand the intricate connection between AI, culture, and society. So, Father Cabayao will just talk about AI as a cool thing for technologically savvy youths and me, like you. And perhaps for the more conservative, the more traditional individuals, it could be represented as something that is scary. Father Cabayao more fundamentally helped us see it in a deeper way. AI, technology, as something that is an intricate part of our lives. It is shaped by how we relate to one another and how we make decisions. He also reminded us that AI is not just about what machines can do. It's also about what we let them do. And who gets to decide which information is to be produced and to be reproduced, and therefore implying that there is really power dynamics behind the use of AI. Early on, Father Cabayao talks about the use of AI privileges some groups and, in a way, underprivileges other groups, therefore implying questions about its ethical use, which was of course very much expressed by one of our students who majored in psychology, who really, in a way, questioned AI and in fact advocated that AI can never be ethical, but of course to which Father also successfully responded. And therefore that's the big takeaway. AI is never neutral, as what has been repeatedly nuanced by Father in his talk. It really reflects the values, the biases, even the way the robotics are designed. No? In fact, it's very much socially constructed. No? The systems of people who create and use it. So yes, definitely, AI can be incredibly useful. As students, it helps us write our papers, answer all our recitation questions from our incisive teachers, helps solve mathematical problems, and many other things that it can afford us to do. But it also comes with big responsibilities. What is the responsibility? Father Cabayao also emphasized that how do we make technology harness the best of our potential so that the dance steps between technology and humanity match together is what each of us in this room is really challenged to reflect on. So as students of the contemporary world, you are not just future engineers, artists, computer scientists, nurses, educators, or social scientists. You're already global citizens. That's what your G1211 has taught you this semester. And part of that means being thoughtful and being critical about how you use technology. Not just because it's smart, it's helpful, but because it really says something about the kind of world you want to live in. So we need a discourse like this, a forum like this, we need to expose, if I may use the term, or to illuminate the social discourses and the power dynamics behind the use of AI to ensure that institutions are continually challenged to create an improved musical background for the dance steps between technology and humanity to match. And for that, Father Ochi mentioned about the need for more collaboration, more dialogues between and among disciplines to address complex social problems. So this juncture, let me now take this moment to thank the people who made today's event and the whole Saulog celebration possible. To our hardworking G1211 faculty under the department, thank you for motivating your students to attend this beautiful conversation. And to FAPS, our pagsanan ng pag-aaral ng pagkaundaran at sosyolohiya for our academic club of students majoring in sociology and development studies. Thank you for your support and commitment to the shared journey. To Ray, Teresa, and our friends from the Institutional Communications and Promotions Office or ICOMS, thank you for being in charge of the live stream and making this plenary talk accessible to a wider audience. And of course, our big thanks to the Office of the Assistant Dean of the Social Sciences, Prosper, under Dr. Larry Bayan for providing financial support. Not only for this plenary session, but for all the other activities for our Saulog semester. So here's a question that I'd like to leave with you, something to think about tonight, tomorrow, or maybe even beyond the semester. So if AI is a mirror of our society, what kind of reflection are you helping to shape? If technology reflects our choices and values, what story are you telling through the way you use it? And if AI shows us what kind of society we're building, what kind of future are we helping to create? So thank you everyone, and again, thank you Father Solano for this inspiring talk. I'm happy for you to meet you everyone. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Dr. Serrano, for those insightful closing remarks and for encouraging us to continue this important reflection beyond today's session. So, to capture the memories of this enriching afternoon, I would like to request everyone to simply stand and then,
Kasi what's the shift?